All right. Hey, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
CRM Playaz back in our individual homes after being on location with Raju at the HQ headquarters of Zoho, the U.S. HQ.
That would be the U.S. HQ of ZOHO.
Yeah, the U.S. HQ ZOHO, Pleasanton, California.
That's 3.
Okay, so this is like a two-parter for the Playaz. First part is going to be just the two of us. I feel like Bill Withers just came in somewhere with that. But in a little bit, as you could probably see in the background on Paul at his house, there is a figure behind Paul, which we will be glad to. Yeah, now he's there. He is. It's Don Shorman from Pega, but we're going to be talking to him more about stand-up comedy in a little bit. All right, but before we do that, there's some pretty significant news that came out just today about one of the companies that we have been following forever, basically.
I actually remember them in the womb.
Okay. we have to. You remember how they used to call Prince the artist formerly known as Prince because he went to from the name to a symbol, an unpronounceable symbol, and so we just started calling him the artist formerly known as Prince. Some of us call him Keap because of that. But there is this company that we've been following for years. Most people know them as InfusionSoft, one of the real pioneers when it came to small business marketing automation tools. And they built up a great following. They had, really good functionality, kind of complex functionality, allowed you to do a lot if you knew how to use it. Been on a really good trajectory for a number of years, but then all of a sudden they kind of went away, or at least it felt like they went away.
Apparently, they went away.
They went away.
A lot more than felt.
Okay, so they went away. And they went away for a couple of years. They went through some pretty significant changes. A lot of the people that we knew over the years that were in senior positions, executive positions, they're no longer there. And we were kind of left trying to figure out what's going on. Okay, so fast forward to today, where they have basically re-emerged. And they re-emerged as a new name, a new brand. The brand that we knew as InfusionSoft has now turned into Keap, and that's spelled Keap. And not only have they...
I wonder how much money they spent on an agency to come up with misspelling a name.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that one out. So not only have they rebranded the company as Keap, they have a new product that is branded Keap, and it's aimed at simplification of their initial product, which is we all know as InfusionSoft. So, two things here. New brand for the company, new product called Keap, and the original product is now called InfusionSoft by Keap. It's a lot of stuff going on.
Oh, God.
Okay, so what are your initial impressions?
Ugh. There you go. That's my deep analyst thinking. Look, you and I were their first big analyst supporters. We liked what we saw. But look, when it boils down to it, the branding for me doesn't make any sense particularly. I don't know what they're trying to think Keap with an A actually means.
A K and an A.
Right, a K, right. Well, I mean, even if it's Keep, I get that to, let's say, in a more... But, you can't be that, how do I put it, that abstract and that metaphorical in our universe, right? You can be creative, certainly, but when it boils down to it, for example, SAP used to call their CRM product C4C, Cloud for Customer. You Google for a sales cloud or a marketing cloud or a service cloud, you don't come up with Cloud for Customer. You come up with sales cloud, marketing cloud, service cloud. Keap what are we going to come up with? Castle Keap, maybe? And even that's with 2 E's, right? So you're going to come up with nothing for this one. And the problem in general I have, honestly, look, I think Clayton Mask is a lovely guy. Laura Collins is a wonderful person. I really do. They're wonderful human beings.
Absolutely.
But the company, 2 years of not making a decision to not even say to the influencers that they were in touch with and who supported them routinely, well, tell you what, we're going to have to shut down for a couple of years while we figure it out, and then just going away and ignoring all queries like you didn't exist. Dumb. It was a dumb move. They lost a lot of ground. Zoho's picked up on some of that ground, I'm sure. Other small business providers, Converge Hub and others like that, have probably picked up on some of their ground. You know, they've lost a lot of credibility with me, so basically I could sit here and mock them the whole time pretty easily and not feel bad about it, right? So the reality is that, look, don't get me wrong, I don't feel jilted. I'm not like into I don't that much, but they were on a good roll. They had a lot of positive momentum. Jim Collins kind of wrecked them by his stupid good to great, which means good to follow my lead or else you'll never be great and thus a crappy person, which is pretty much his outlook. And they died from there. So as far as I'm concerned, change your name all you want, add an act-like product, which is what this seems to be. But I don't see you have a lot of ground to regain and a lot of credibility to regain and a lot of goodwill to regain. And right now you haven't done much to regain it. So, you know, that's where I'm sitting with them. I'm not judging them for a bad product I'm judging for a lot of really stupid decisions.
You know, I think back to last week when we were at Zoho's Analyst Day. And one of the things that Sridhar Vinbu, the founder and CEO, said really stuck out. He says when you don't take any outside money, then you have much more control of how you do things and control of your culture and control of the product and control over how you approach the market. And he said, I'll never forget this, he said, I sleep well on nights that are quarter close nights because he's not having to worry about answering to outside influences. And I think, maybe Clay and the folks at InfusionSoft would have a different opinion on this, but I think when they started taking that outside investment, and good, huge numbers from Goldman, and I think it ended up being like 110, 120 million, but Goldman, and having to answer to outsiders about growth or about market and how to kind of position yourself in the market and what your goals and objectives were. They started having that external influence, which means they had to change the way that they did things in order to kind of meet those goals. And I think in changing that, you kind of changed the culture. You kind of had to change, the executive team. And I think all those changes that I believe were externally pushed on them really had a maybe a detrimental impact to what they were doing. And
I absolutely agree with you. Look, I mean, they lost Mark Chesley, Richard Tripp, Greg Head. I mean, 3 genuinely excellent executives at any company. Forget scale and size of target audience. These guys were great. They're all doing fine.
Greg Head is like really...
Yeah, Greg's like the leading entrepreneur of all of Arizona.
Yeah, that's right. The godfather of entrepreneurism.
Exactly. It's like the thought leader, and he's done amazingly good stuff. And and Mark and Richard are doing quite well too. So, but again, you're doing it. A company that was based on a highly personal culture and a deep connection to its customers.
Yes.
Decided instead to go for money because they had to. right? You have $100+ million in investments, and your addressable market is 0 to 25 employee companies, which means you're not going to make a lot of money per deal. Puts you in a staggeringly bad position because you've got to satisfy those investors before you satisfy yourself in this case. And the reality is, they can deny that all they want, but the reality is ultimately the investors invested because they expect to make money on this, not because they love the company with a deep passion. They just maybe a bet, but the more money you take, the deeper you're in, and they're deeply in, and they don't have the addressable market really with at least the original InfusionSoft product to sustain that. Now maybe they do with Act 2, so to speak, but again, they don't have goodwill either, which means that they don't have people who are going to. I mean, maybe they have it and we don't know it. But if you lose the goodwill of the, speaking for you and me here, of the two people who supported you the longest, and actually, I'm not speaking for this other person, but another person we both know and you especially know well, who really doesn't deal with them at all anymore, who was at Soho with us, we had lunch with. And then that they've got a lot of issues to address. And, honestly, I know you saw the press release. I haven't seen any press release. I haven't seen a thing. And again, I don't feel personally hurt. They don't want to contact me. They don't. But it's just a matter of being smart. And they just have a long way to go to show me that they're smart enough to succeed in a market that they're already oversubscribed in. And that's what I'm concerned about. Again, I think Clay's a great guy. I think, Laura's terrific, one of my favorite people of all time, perhaps. But the reality is that I don't see anything that tells me that they're going to succeed, even with a misspelled word as their name.
I'll say this, and I did have a chance to talk to Clayton. We had a good conversation, very kind of open and honest discussion. I would say one of the things he said was they had to retool, they had to take the time to kind of get the product right because they were focusing, they were refocusing on that lower end of the market, and so where traditional InfusionSoft platform was aimed at small business, but at a sophisticated, more complex oriented kind of person on the small business level who could understand all that was in that platform and make it work. That's like a very small slab of that SMB population. So what they were saying is they had to retool to create a product for the vast majority of that low end, that micro business of folks who did not have that level of sophistication, did not want to spend time learning the product, just wanted something that would allow them to do what needs to be done in the most efficient manner. So retooling, building a product for that, I totally get. I think it's important. But the thing that I think is going to be more of a challenge than even that for them is that, okay, you have currently 200,000 users of an InfusionSoft product. I think that breaks down to like 40,000 companies. All right. Most of the folks that they are now going for are going to go for that lower end, easier product. There are tens of millions of those folks out there. There's more competition than there ever has been. So even though I haven't seen the product, but let's say it's a very good product, which I would have no doubt it would be, because they know how to build a good product. Yeah, but how are you going to get the mass of small businesses in and using and staying attached to it? Because let's face it, they've been around for like 15 years, and 200,000 users sounds like a lot, but when you look at it over the span of 15 years, that's not a lot. So when you go and you say you're rebranding, you're looking at this new market, how are you going to capture a huge share of it in order for this to work? Because like we already said, they've already raised over like $140 million, so they have to make it work this time. Yeah. How are you going to do that and get that scale of customer in less than 15 years' time?
Oh, so here's what I propose to them. They have to create what I'm going to call the Chopped Liver Initiative. All right, the reason I'm calling it, Alan Bersin, if you're listening in, you'll know this.
He is, by the way. He just...
Okay, if you're Jewish, there's an expression, when you ignore somebody that you probably shouldn't, that person will go, so what am I, chopped liver? Right? So, I'm calling this the Chopped Liver Initiative, and their job is to regain the trust of those who could actually help them in gaining the, let's call it, breadth and depth of support that they need to sell to that larger market with this new product that has a misspelled name. And so, do that. You've made a really cogent case for what their problems are going to be, right? They have, over the years, 200,000, but I don't know what they consider their addressable market in terms of numbers, probably in several million, but the reality is ACT did what it seems to be. Again, it's probably a very different kind of thing, but is addressing that same group with the same kind of simplified CRM-ish technology. ACT had a huge base, many, many millions. So obviously, given that ACT itself is somewhat, at least last I saw, a bit outdated, they have an opportunity to take that market. But you don't do that without the support of those who can support you externally, and they are apparently not all that cognizant. Maybe they're reaching out to you as the first.
I don't know. But I'll say this. Remember last week when we recorded with Raju?
Yeah.
And remember what he thanked you for? He thanked you for the idea of doing an annual event and for also reinforcing the need to do that event every year.
Good catch on that one. No.
Yeah, well, but think about it. And then think about what Salesforce has done with Dreamforce, what HubSpot has done with Inbound.
What our next guest has done with PegaWorld.
Yes, and we get the thumbs up on that one. But the importance of once you begin engaging with that community in certain ways, I just don't feel you stop doing that.
Do you remember the reasoning they gave for stopping to do it, too?
Yeah. Well, so anyway.
Get closer to your customers. Yeah, right, yeah. That worked.
All right, we better wrap this up because we definitely have to bring on do part 2 with our special guest. But I say this, I after talking with Clay, I always come away feeling like he's very honest, he's very passionate, he's very optimistic, and I really hope it does work out. I asked him point blank though, after you've done this reboot and as part of the reboot a rebrand, I don't feel like there's a lot of room for error here anymore. Are you guys set? Do you have the right team involved? Do you feel like this is going to take you where you need to go? And honestly, I mean, he said, yeah. He said, yeah, we had our missteps. I mean, there's no way we can go say that we didn't have our missteps.
You're literally the nicest human being I've ever and I just am not as forgiving on this one. Yeah, you had your missteps, but you got to fix your missteps, not just have them, right? And they haven't, to my knowledge, unless, again, where I'm going to be glass half full, roughly, on it, is they reached out to you. That's a positive sign to me.
That was PR. It was because they're announcing the news. It wasn't for my advice. It was for getting the news out or letting people know. I take that completely out of you. I actually told them one thing you have to do is you have to have an analyst program, an influencer program that you cannot drop the ball on again, because if you do it, you've already, like you said, you've already lost a certain number of people because you dropped the ball this time. If you do it again, I don't know.
People who are literally doing what I'm doing right now. So you don't. It's okay if I do it. I've been part of their quote family for years, so it's forgivable with me, but it's not forgivable necessarily with everybody, right?
Yeah.
And but you know what? As far as I'm concerned, where I'm coming from at this point, well, I'll wait and see. I'm not going to make anything. I'm doing nothing. I think proactively with them. I'll just wait and see what they do, and I'll watch for what they do in general in the market, and I'll keep my eyes on it. And if hopefully, just given how much I like Clayton and how much I like Laura, when it boils down to it, that's what this relies on at the moment.
Yeah.
I would love to see them do well. Actually, I have no clue if they will. So we'll see.
And I'll just say all we can do is look. All we can do is keep an eye out. All right, so we're going to step away for a couple minutes. Get ready for the gentleman right over Paul's shoulder, Mr. Don Shorman from Pega. We will bring him on in just a couple minutes.